We are. All right, awesome. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome, everyone. And if you're like, what are we doing? I mean, that's me almost every day. But what are we doing? So what we're doing is we're doing a step study where each week we're going to break down a different step. We're going to come out of the big book because, I'm a big book gal. I love it. And so prepare yourself. We're going to be doing some bouncing. Apologies in advance. And by the time we get to step 9, I'll make sure I make a very formal amends for all the bouncing that we're going to do. And we might take 3 weeks to go through step 4, and we'll just go with the flow and roll with it. So if you're ready to rock and roll, diving into step 1, I think one of the best places to kick it off is on page 44, which is just one of my favorites, because where we're picking up is actually the start of step 2. Wait a minute, Paige, what are we doing? So let's go to page 44, and what we're going to go to is the first full paragraph, page 44. And so it says, in the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. And we're 44 pages in, and plus there were some Roman numerals. I hope at this point in the book we learned something, but no worries if we didn't. It says, we hope you have learned in the preceding chapters, you've learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. So what we're trying to do in step 1 is diagnose ourselves. We're trying to see within ourselves, do I have this illness? And I'll be honest with you guys, when I got here young. And I know some of you are like, you're still pretty young. I know. That happens. But I came here with a whole lot of andas and a whole lot of yeah buts. I came here looking for all the ways that I was different. And what I would do is I would sit in a meeting like this one, and I'm glad you guys are all here, and I would actively compare the consequences. So I would compare the consequences of my drinking with the consequences of your drinking. And because I got here young, what happened is I didn't have some of the consequences that you had. Or sometimes you would share your consequences and I'd think, whoa, I'm way worse than you. And when I was doing that, I was inching my way back out the door, hoping that I didn't have the illness that you had, but still desperately wanting to be a part of. And why I'm so passionate about the first paragraph on page 44 is because this first paragraph made it as simple as it needed to be for this silly little alcoholic. It cut through all my delusion, all my denial, all my andas, all my yeah buts, all the ways I was different, all the ways I wasn't like you. And it caught me right between the eyes. And I could not deny who or what I was. And so here it is. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably an alcoholic. And so what this is a book of mirrors. And what we get to do is we get to hold this book up to the light of our experience. And welcome those who just joined us. We are on page 44, first paragraph, and we'll be here for a little while, and then we're going to be bouncing into some Roman numerals. I'm just prepping everyone. And so what I get to do, this is what makes the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. These are the symptoms that alcoholics have that non-alcoholics do not have. So if I want to find out, do I have this thing? Because do I have to do all the stuff you guys are doing? Do I have to do all that? Because that's the real question, right? I got to find out. And so I get to turn these statements into questions. I get to hold it up to the light of my experience. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. If, when I honestly wanted to, I could not quit. When I honestly wanted to, I could not stay sober. That is a sign I have this illness. And so what does that look like? That looks like, have I ever gone to Alcoholics Anonymous before? Would I have a frequent flyer miles if we had that in this fellowship? No judgment. Have I been in and out of treatment? Have I been in and out of detox? Have I been in and out of other institutions, the hospital? Or have I said the morning after, I never want to do that again, and found myself doing it again? So what that symptom is, and if you're writing in your book, and this is a rumor, I know we're not supposed to gossip, but I have heard a rumor that that's what all the cool kids were doing, that they were writing in their books. So, grab a hold. You can make a little note that this is the obsession of the mind. And welcome those that just joined us. We're on page 44, first full paragraph. And then it says, or. And I'll be very, very honest with you guys. I am not an or sort of gal. I am an and sort of alcoholic. I am anding it up all over the place. But it does say or. Or, if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take. So I can ask myself, when I drink, do I have control over the amount that I drink every single time? Now, I'm going to be a little humorous about this, but if you're wondering, what does control look like? Control looks like dry pants every single time. It looks like I've got both my shoes. You know what I'm saying? Control looks like I'm not in the back of a police car. But what we're talking about, absolutely, page 44, paragraph 1, first full paragraph. And so what happens when I start to drink? Do I experience that thing inside of me that tells me I need more? And the more that I drink, the more that I need to drink. Do I know what it's like to take one drink and be gone for the rest of the evening or the rest of the week, or I'll see you in Easter? You know what I mean? Do I know what that is like? And those two symptoms are how we diagnose this illness. So, if you're writing in your book, you can make a little note that is the allergy of the body. So it is those two symptoms, the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. And that's what we're looking at. And it says, so if when you want, so welcome, we're on page 44, first full paragraph. It says, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, the obsession of the mind, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. That is the two symptoms. That's all I need to look at. Do I have those symptoms? And then it comes and gives us some bad news. It says, if that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Goodness gracious, that's not good news. I don't want one of those. That's a step 2 thing. We'll talk about that there. But I want to point something out. It says, which only an illness, which only a spiritual experience will conquer. I want to talk about that word illness, because the American Psychiatric Association, I believe it was 54, it might have been 56. I think Gary's the one that'll be correcting me if I'm wrong on that. And I don't stand much, but I do stand to be corrected. But it was classified as a disease by these medical and psychiatric and these organizations. But in the book, the word illness is used. And when I talk about alcoholism, I refer to it as an illness. I am never, ever going to correct anyone. I'm not that pedantic. I don't know. I'm not going to be like, actually, don't worry about it. But I point out the difference because it is interesting. The difference between a disease and an illness is that a disease is a doctor's diagnosis. Another way to say it is that a disease is somebody else telling me that I have this problem. Now, I have a feeling if we're hanging out today on this delightful Wednesday, that you have probably had many people tell you, hey, I think you have a problem. But the problem is, it doesn't really matter what they think. And so what an illness is the patient's report of their own symptoms. So it is me saying, this is how I feel about me. This is what I'm seeing that I experience. Do I experience these symptoms? The obsession of the mind, a return to drinking even when I want to stay sober, and the allergy of the body, that once I start to drink, I don't have control. Oh, that's me. And here's the reason why I make that distinction. Because it doesn't matter what anyone else tells me, I'm the one that needs to be convinced. I need to be convinced of my own illness, Nobody could tell me nothing. And that's what we're trying to get to with that first step experience. But the symptom that most of us find the easiest to identify in ourselves is the allergy of the body. So let's dive into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to bounce. I told you it would happen. I wasn't going to be a liar. So if you're able, let's bounce all the way to the page XXX. The easiest way to find it is if you can find page 1 and then you flip the page and it'll be on the left-hand side. Now, that is if you're working with the 4th edition. If you're in the 3rd, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to find it based on vibes. But where we're going to, which is the, most of us have the 4th edition. If you're like, what type do I have? Probably the 4th. So, page XXX. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the second from the bottom paragraph. It's right after all these 5 different types of alcoholics. Dr. Silkworth, he's saying there's this type, there's that type, there's this type, and the paragraph that we're picking up on page XXX, all these and many others. So what he's saying is all these don't matter, but let's talk about them. So all these and many other different types of alcoholics have one symptom in common. So this is the one symptom that each and every one of us have, because why else would we want to stop drinking? You know what I mean? That thing worked. That was great. Why would I want to give that up? And this is the symptom. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. So that phenomenon of craving is that thing that happens inside of me where I take that first drink and I get thirstier and I need another and another and another. And it says this phenomenon, as we have suggested, and it spoke about that earlier in this chapter, may be the manifestation of an allergy, which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. So what we're trying to say is that there is something on a physiological level that makes me different from non-alcoholics. There is something physiologically different about how my body responds to and processes alcohol that never happens to a non-alcoholic. And then I got some bad news. Yikes. It says it has never been by any treatment with which we are familiar permanently eradicated. The only relief we have is to suggest entire abstinence. Oh boy, that's not good news. Yikes. I hope I don't have this allergy. So let's find out if we have this allergy. Now, for a lot of us, when we talk about this allergy, I don't know about you, I heard allergy and I was thinking, man, what a cop-out. That doesn't relate to me. That doesn't apply to me. But when we look at the definition of the word allergy from the 1930s, an allergy is just an abnormal physical reaction. It's not even necessarily a negative reaction. It is just a reaction that is negative that happens at a physical or physiological level. And so, let's say, for this example, and some of you guys might be familiar with this is the good old strawberry milk alcohol, which sounds like a delightful or terrible drink, depending on how you're viewing it. You know what I mean? We know Jim liked his whiskey in the milk. But if I have an allergy to strawberries, that is abnormal, because 9 out of 10 people in the world, that they can have strawberries, and it does nothing to them, it does nothing for them. But let's say, I don't have the numbers, but we're going to do some loosey-goosey math, which is how I do most of my math. Let's say about 1 out of 10 has this allergy to strawberries. That makes them abnormal, not because they're bad, not because of generational shame or anything like that. No, their body just doesn't process it in the same way other people's do. So the allergy to strawberries manifests itself as a rash or hives. And it's funny because I was having a real bad allergic reaction yesterday, not to strawberries. I don't know what, but I broke out in hives. Now, the more that you are in contact with your allergen, the stronger the reaction. So if I'm allergic to strawberries and I have a little nibble on a strawberry, I might get a little hivey. But if I eat a whole bushel of strawberries, I go to town, baby, on those strawberries. They were on sale. I'm going to have a huge reaction. And it's safe to say the effect is negative. Similarly with milk, many people in the world are able to produce milk, but I was thinking more process milk internally. So about, let's say, maybe not as many are allergic to, or fewer are allergic to strawberries than milk, but let's say 3 out of 10 people are allergic to milk. And their allergy to milk manifests itself as, I'm going to be very polite, an upset tummy. Those are the words we're going to use, like a lady. And is it safe to say you put a little bit of coffee in your creamer? If you have a milk allergy, you're going to get a little bit of an upset tummy. But if you chug back a whole 2 liter of milk, you get the whole milk and you chug it back, you're going to have a big, big reaction. So the more that we ingest, the stronger the reaction. But something I also want to point out, if I'm allergic to strawberries and I see those strawberries are on sale or I got a coupon, delightful, but that doesn't give me a rash. If I'm allergic to milk and I see somebody having like a hot fudge sundae and or a banana split or like a milkshake, I'm sorry if there's people that are like, hey girl, I haven't had my dinner, I'm really hungry, could you focus up? But if I see somebody else having ice cream or having milk, that doesn't give me an upset stomach. And so that's important to understand, is the allergy only occurs once I have ingested it. But here's the thing that trips a lot of us up, is my allergy to strawberries. I will tell you, I do not like hives. They are unpleasant. No thank you. And the upset tummy feeling that we get with milk, unpleasant. But the difference with alcohol is the initial effect on the alcoholic is actually not negative. It is incredibly positive. It is the most positive thing that I've ever experienced in my entire life, pretty much. And so my allergy to alcohol only sets off once I have ingested alcohol. It doesn't happen if there's, like a Super Bowl commercial and they're pouring the beer in the glass. It doesn't happen just if somebody's talking about drinking. It only happens once I've ingested the alcohol. And here's the thing, the allergy to alcohol manifests, so the symptom is this craving. And it's this craving where I need more. But the more I consume, the stronger that craving gets. And so I take one drink, and I describe it in this way quite a bit, so apologies if some of you guys are sick of hearing it. But I take that first drink, and that first drink demands a second. And that second drink insists on 4. And my 4th drink will not relent until I've had 8, and the 8th drink is just screaming at me until I've had 16. And so on and so forth. You see, I start drinking and I get thirstier. Now, if you're wondering, hey, Paige, are you sure this is an allergy? Well, something I want to point out is that does not happen to me with any other beverage. There is not any other beverage that happens to me. So in the mornings, I wake up, I do my prayer, I do my meditation, and then because my stomach stopped handling coffee, and I do say that because I want you to feel a little bit bad for me, because that was unpleasant when that happened. It was sad. But I start my day with prayer, with meditation, and a cup of Earl Grey tea. But not once in my life have I ever gone on a 3-day Earl Grey tea bender. I've never done it. I've never had a cup of Earl Grey tea and slammed back another and another and another, and then ripped up the pantry and found a box of chamomile and snorted it because it's got to be the same. I just have a cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? And so this allergy is this abnormal reaction that we have to alcohol. And we can ask ourselves, do I have this abnormal reaction? And when it talks about, it has never been by any treatment with which we are familiar permanently eradicated. What that means is if I have the allergy, I have the allergy. If I have the allergy, there will not be a time when I can safely go back to drinking. And I don't know about you, but I'll tell you where the allergy took me in my life. It took me to places I didn't want to go. I started to do things I didn't want to do. I started to hurt people in ways I never wanted to hurt people. I started to cross lines in the sand that I said I would ever cross. I started to break hearts that were so important to me. to break trust, to break, to lose things. And of course, I'm not just going to say my pants and my shoes, but I would lose my hopes and my dreams and my goals and my identity, and my life became one that was absolutely unrecognizable to somebody like me. I couldn't believe who I was, and I couldn't believe where I ended up. Man, I couldn't look myself in the mirror, and I could see the need that I had for sobriety. I could see that I could not drink the way other people drank. I saw that once I started, I could not stop. I didn't quite understand the ins and outs. I didn't quite understand the full nature of the allergy. But if I have any experiences of the allergy, it is a sign that I have this thing. And if it's a sign I have this thing, it means I need to stop. It means that I need to stay sober. And actually, I wasn't planning on bouncing here. But if you're here today and you're like, I'm not sure if I have the allergy, there is a test. Now, it's a pretty intense test. The test is bottom of page 31. I wasn't planning on going here, so I hope I'll do well as if I ever do well for time. Have we met me? Bottom of page 31. It says, we do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic. It says we don't like to. Doesn't mean we're not good at it. And again, why don't we pronounce? Because it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what I can see about the truth of who I am. That's why. But I mean, I can clock. I can clock them, we know. Because actually, that's also how we know the geographic doesn't work. Because we'll go somewhere completely new, and you can spot out somebody else that's an alcoholic that you can drink with. You can see them. I mean, we don't like to do that. Alrighty. So, bottom of page 31, it says, we do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. So if you're not sure you have the allergy of the body, here is the first test. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. Now, I do feel it is imperative that I quantify what try to drink and stop abruptly looks like, because I thought every time I broke the seal and went to the bathroom, that was stopping abruptly. That's not what we're talking about. So it is a test. So I can go out and have 3 drinks and then stop for 24 hours. 24. Not 1, not 3, 24. And it says, try it more than once. And I'll let you know that every single sponsee that I've ever taken through, when we've gotten to this part in the book, I'll say, hey, you can test it if you want. And not a single person I have ever worked with has been like, that sounds like a good idea, Paige. Off I go. No. And the reason is because in this moment, we already have enough experience that tells us, no, I have this thing. We already have enough experience built up of, no, I know I can't do it. But what is interesting is not every person that I have ever worked with has stayed sober. And what this begins to illuminate is that my real problem is not that once I start to drink, I cannot control the amount that I take. My real problem is that I go back to it, despite the fact that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I can't. I go back to it again and again and again. And so where I think a good place to hop on over to is page 24. And where we're going on page 24, we're going to start with the italics, because they're for emphasis. Put the right emphasis on the right syllable. Sorry, I was trying to give everyone some time to find the page. Page 24, first paragraph in italics. I got distracted. Alrighty. So it says, so now what we're beginning to talk about is the obsession of the mind. And that's what we're talking about here on page 24. And I want to just make extra clear, the allergy of the body only happens once I have taken a drink. The obsession of the mind is what happens when I am sober, which is a bit of it's a mind twisty, because I thought all I had to do was get sober. But every time I took that first drink, I was sober. So let's talk about the obsession of the mind. So it says the fact is, not theory, not belief, not opinion, but fact. And it is a fact, not just from smart sciencey people like Dr. Silkworth, who was the big homie in the doctor's opinion, but also from our own lived experience. Again, let's use this as a book of mirrors. Is the fact in my life, in my experience, that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, that reason yet obscure is we don't know why, have lost the power of choice in drink. And to lose the power of choice in drink, what that means is I will drink again. Because if I do not have the power to choose whether I will drink or not, it is only a matter of time before I do. If I don't have the ability to choose what type of shoes I wear, it's inevitably I'm going to get a pair of shoes I don't like if I don't have choice. And I don't have the ability to choose to stay sober if I have this illness. And it talks about our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. So the willpower, and I want you to know, alcoholics, we actually have a tremendous amount of willpower. We do. If you have ever scraped yourself up off the bathroom floor at like 4 a.m. to go to like a 5 a.m. shift, man, that takes willpower, right? We got willpower. You know, you're doing work. Imagine it, and some of you are like, I'd rather not, Paige. But imagine, hungover after, a night or several nights of heavy drinking. You're out in the hot summer sun doing manual labor. You know what I mean? Or you're in a hot kitchen, doing that. It takes willpower. There is a lot of willpower that we have as alcoholics. But the thing is, the willpower that we have in our other areas of life have absolutely no power or effect to keep me sober. So that's why it's saying our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. When it comes to not taking that first drink, the willpower that I have in all other areas of my life is insufficient. It does not work. It goes on to say, we are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. So what it's saying is that there is going to be a time I burn my life to the ground and I'm like, that was awful, that was painful, I don't want to do it again. Or maybe it's early in my drinking career, and I will say only an alcoholic's making a career out of it, only career I ever had. But we burn it to the ground. And we're saying, that's it, I'm not going to do it. But early on, maybe it's I'm just not going to drink while I'm working. Or I'm just not going to drink while I'm pregnant, or I'm not going to work while or not going to drink while, until, after I get off parole, or, all these different things, these softer swearings off. But here's the thing. At first, we're able to say, I don't want to drink. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober. And we're able to do things like we're able to, distract ourselves or like surf the urge and like just hold on until it passes or play the tape to the end. And we're able to do that for a little bit. But it says we are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force. So what it's saying is there will be a time that I'm not able. I'm not able to play the tape to the end. I'm not able to think of the consequences. I'm not able to, just to not do it. I'm not able to phone a friend. I am unable. And it is in those mental blank spots that alcoholism is really taking a hold. Because I have to stay sober, I need to stay sober, I want to stay sober, but I get a thought that looks a little like this time will be different. A thought that looks like nobody will ever know. A thought that looks like I just got to get it out of my system. Hey, I bet if I go on a big bender, I'll have a real good surrender, and then I'll be able to do this AA thing. It rhymes. How could that be wrong? It looks like, I'm out there living my life. I have to stay sober. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober. And I get a case of this suddenly. And I have a drink in my hand and I almost don't know how it happened. As much as it's that as it is also those times when I am, out there and I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink. And that thought is on me. It says, take a drink. drink. And it's a little whisper, a little hint, and it says, take a drink, take a drink, take a drink, take a drink. And it gets louder and louder until what little willpower, I put that in quotations, is eroded away, and I've got a drink in my hand, and I almost don't even know how it happened. That is the obsession of the mind. And when it says we are without defense against the first drink, what that means is I've got nothing that I can put between me and the first drink, and I can hold that up to the light of my experience. Did I try things to stay sober? Even if it was, I'm going to stay sober just for today, or I'm going to stay sober, just until I get off, until I can get a new job, or just until this, or just until that. Do I have experience of where I said, I'm never going to drink again, and only found myself drinking again? Did I try things? I did not try everything, but everything that I tried failed. Did I try outside help? Did I try detox? Did I try treatment centers? Did I try hospitals, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, addictions counselors? Did I try going to the gym? I always make the joke. There was a time in my life I had abs. That was a long time ago, but there was a time. And my abs, they didn't once lead to abstinence. I was pretty ripped, but I kept getting ripped, And again, these are not bad things. They can be good things. Go get buff if you want to get buff. Go. And if you need outside help, please get outside help. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, did I try these things? Getting in the relationship, getting out of the relationship, doing the geographic. Did I try these things? And did these things not work? Did they not work? That's an indication that I have the obsession of the mind. And it goes on to talk about how the consequences of drinking do not come into my mind. I can't think of the consequences. I can't remember how bad it was. I am doomed to drink again. And just in respect to time, what we're going to do is we're going to pop over to page 37. And it's one of my faves. So, and actually, I'll do a little screen share as we go. I was prepared for screen shares. So page 37, second full paragraph, page 37. It says, you may think this is an extreme case. This is the case of our boy Jim, who was out there. He was having a rough day at work. He was a little resentful, but he had no intention of drinking, and he had a case of the suddenlies. Suddenly, he had the thought to put the whiskey in his milk. Suddenly. It says, you may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched. For this kind of thinking, not this kind of drinking, has been characteristic of every single one of us. Do I know what it's like to say, I'm not going to do that again? If only it was at 3 a.m. when we are praying to the porcelain gods. I had no problems getting on my knees to pray then. What? Please, God, make it stop. Even if it's that type of prayer, that thinking that this time will be different, nobody will ever know. Did I have any experience of that? It goes on to say, we have sometimes reflected more than Jen did upon the consequences. But there was always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea went out. The next day we could ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. And so what we're talking about here is this is what I like to talk about, like a personification of my self-will, my sound reasoning, and the obsession of the mind. And you see, if anyone's ever told you, hey, it's not a race, that's not my experience. It is a race. You see, if I burn my life to the ground and I say, that's it, I'm never going to drink again, a race begins. But I'm not racing you. I'm racing the obsession of the mind. I am racing the inevitable first drink. So I put down that drink and the race begins. It's that I want to stay sober. I have to stay sober. I need to stay sober. And running parallel with that is that obsession of the mind. This time will be different. Nobody will ever know. And what I come to find out is the obsession of the mind, given enough time, given enough distance, it will always win the race. And another way that I have to sort of visualize this, we can thank Eileen for the props, because I got props. Because I'm a 30-something-year-old woman, we got props today. So I talk about it like it's a race. And so I burn my life to the ground, and I get my little motorcycle of sound reasoning. And actually, I do have a screen share for that as well. I got my little motorcycle of sound reasoning, and it's this little blue motorcycle, and it is my need to stay sober, my want to stay sober, my desire to stay sober. And if I burn my life to the ground really bad, if I'm in a lot of pain, if I'm really scared, if there's a lot of consequences, this little motorcycle gets a head start. But what it is racing is the obsession of the mind. And the obsession of the mind, it's this little race car or motorcycle. For some ungodly reason, somebody put nitrous on this bad boy. It's got turbo boosters. So it doesn't matter how far ahead this guy is. It's only a matter of time before the obsession of the mind will win the race. And I will drink again. And that's what I want to see. It is what happens is when I burn my life to the ground, that I experience what I don't talk about bottoms, because I don't know if bottom, as we often refer to it, as a thing. What often happens is I burn my life to the ground and I'm in so much pain that I'm willing to do things a different way. And what happens is if I'm in enough pain, a window of willingness opens up. And I need to move within that window of willingness before the obsession of the mind takes over. And I need to get through these 12 steps quickly and thoroughly, because that is the only thing that stops this race. But if you're here today and you're like, I am not sure if I have the obsession of the mind, I'm not sure if I have this thing that you guys are talking about. So it says, so if you want to, just like we could go out and have 3 drinks and stop for 24 hours and see what happens, there's another experiment that we can run. And that experiment is on page 34. The first full paragraph on page 34. And then I'm going to let everyone know that after that, I'm going to page XXVIII. I'll tell you about that again, but we're in Roman numerals, so I wanted to give you a head start if you needed. But on page 34, it talks about the first full paragraph. I'm not going to read all of it. It's near the bottom of the first paragraph. It talks about if anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for a year. So if I don't think I have the obsession of the mind, just don't drink. Just don't drink. For 365 days in a row, and I hope it's not a leap year. Oh dear God, please let it not be a leap year. But then what do I want to do after that 1 year? Get drunk, because I earned it, So those are the 2 ways. You get to have this experience, and this experience is where we hold our experience up to the light of this book and say, is this me? You get to decide. That's what's powerful. I'm going to let you know, I think you are, but you get to decide. If you're hanging out with me, most definitely. Yeah, let's be honest. If you're hanging out with me, you are. I joke with my sponsees, I'm the last resort of the truly desperate. So if you wanted outside validation, I got you. But you get to decide. You get to decide what it is for you. You get to decide if this is you. Now let's put this all together, and if I'm correct, this should be my last screen share. So I'm sure people are really happy about that. So let's go to the bottom of page XXVIII. And so if you're looking for an easy way to find it, if you go to the page 1 and you flip back 2 pages, it'll be on the left-hand side. And if you find the very start of the chapter, The Doctor's Opinion, and you go right 2 pages, it'll actually be there too. So that's just, by the way, I want y'all to know, I go to page XXV all the time, it's fallen out of my book. It was only a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or 2 ago, and it was 4 a.m. and that's when I figured that out. So sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. So let's talk bottom of page XXVIII, and let's put those 2 symptoms together and see what the result is. And I'm going to screen share because because let's do it. So it says men and women drink. And if you're writing in your book today, and again, I heard a rumor, that's what the cool kids were doing, you can cross out men and women and write alcoholics. Because we're not talking about regular normal folk. We are talking about alcoholics. Alcoholics drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. You see, as an alcoholic, what am I after? I'm drinking for the effect. I'm not drinking because it pairs well with a nice meal. Let's be honest. If I'm drinking, I'm not eating, because that's just more that comes up during the spiritual prayer position that happens between 1 and 3 a.m., But I am drinking for the effect. And the effect is that sense of ease and comfort. I don't know about you, but for somebody like me, I am a relief-seeking missile. Alcohol worked. Man, it transformed the way that I feel. I was comfortably numb. I could be okay in my own skin. My shoulders, it's the only jewelry I'll wear. I was wearing it as earrings. I take a drink and they fall from me and I'm okay. And then it goes on to say the sensation. So that sense of ease and comfort, that sensation, that feeling is so elusive. To be elusive is to be just out of grasp, which what that means is I just can't quite hold on to it. That while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after time differentiate the true from the false. And if you're writing in your book today, you can make a little note that that is the obsession of the mind. And what does that mean? So what that means is, even though like the feeling we get from alcohol, it's everything that I need. But I can admit to you that alcohol is hurting me. I can admit to you that it is causing me to cross lines I said I would never cross, to do things I said I would never do, to hurt people in ways I never wanted to hurt people. I can admit that to you. But I cannot differentiate what is true from what is false. And what is true is that when I start to drink, I don't have control over the amount that I take every single time. And more often than not, I take that drink and that drink takes me and I blow up my life and my family and my loved ones and my health, and I do things I don't want to do. That is what's true. But what's false is that little motorcycle, that little obsession of the mind that says this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I just got to get it out of my system. My problem was drinking in Calgary, but we're technically in South Carolina. It'll be different. There's no alcoholics down there. I don't know how many sports teams, but I want to make the joke. Go Gamecocks, go sports. I don't have an opinion on the sports teams in South Carolina. But that I am sober. And I have a thought that takes me back again and again to the first drink. And that I want to emphasize, that is what makes this thing hopeless. I have to stay sober. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober. But I do not in and of myself have the power to stay sober, because a thought comes to me and inevitably I believe the lie. So we are unable to differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. I did not know what was wrong with me. I did not know what it meant to be an alcoholic. I did not know what it meant to have alcoholism. I thought it was all my andas. I thought it was my yeah buts. I did not know what was wrong with me. And it goes on to say, they are restless, irritable, and discontented. Unless they can again, let me stop there. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. And if you were to tell me or ask me, Paige, when I was new, Paige, what do you think your problem is? Well, to be honest, I would be doing everything in my power to avoid a conversation like that, because that's a question I didn't have the answer to. But if you had cornered me after a meeting, I probably would have told you alcohol. Alcohol is my problem. But if you were to ask me, Paige, when do you feel restless, irritable, and discontented? I would have to concede it is when I am sober. It is when I am sober that my skin doesn't feel like it fits. It is when I am sober, I feel so depressed I can't get out of bed. It is when I am sober that my anxiety is so bad it feels like somebody is stabbing my shoulder blades. It is when I am sober that it feels like I'm a raw, exposed nerve ending, and for some ungodly reason the wind is blowing. It is when I am sober that I feel that emptiness, that loneliness, that pain, that hole in my soul that nothing can fill. And that is how I feel sober. But to be fair, if I'm new and you ask me how I'm doing at a meeting, I'm like, fine. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be sober. I'll take 24 and pass it on. Right? And I point that out because it's important. Because I thought genuinely you guys came to meetings and you got happy and better. And I will say meetings are wonderful and they really can take the edge off. But I wasn't feeling that freedom. In fact, I was feeling that restless, irritable, and discontented. And I thought it was my Andis. But it turns out that is what we treat. So I cannot diagnose alcoholism off the spiritual malady because there are non-alcoholics who experience the spiritual malady. If you're wondering, Paige, are you sure about that? I'm not in an HOA, but I feel like they'd be on your HOA committee. You'll find some spiritually sick people. I'm not on a PTA, but I feel like you'd find them there. If you're in rush hour traffic, you'll find some spiritually sick people there. But if you're here today, regardless of how long you've been sober, and you are feeling that emptiness that nothing can touch, you're feeling like there's a screaming coming from the depth of your soul, what I want you to know is that is what we treat in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a solution for that. And when we treat that, spoilers, when we treat that, the obsession of the mind is lifted. And if the obsession of the mind is lifted, I don't take that first drink. And if I don't do that, I can't set off the phenomenon of craving. So they are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience that sense of ease and comfort. Ooh. Ease and comfort. And I will point out, it says a sense. And I don't know about you, I will sell my soul for a sense of ease and comfort. Because I can't stand the way that I'm feeling. And my belief is that alcohol works so well for alcoholics at treating the spiritual malady. It doesn't for non-alcoholics. They'll take a drink and they'll be like, oh, I'm starting to feel it. I should slow down. I'm like, your red light means green for me. I can't relate there. But it works so well at treating that pain that is a part of the human condition, that I believe that over time, the obsession of the mind is created. It gets warped and it tells me whatever lie it needs to tell me so I can get back to a sense of ease and comfort. And that ease and comfort which comes at once, that 3-drink glow. And for you, it might not be a 3-drink glow. It might be a 6-drink glow or a 2-drink glow. But that sweet spot when you hit it and it's like, oh. But then that little switch goes off in the back of my head and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. So it says, the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. Let me describe for you what impunity looks like. This is impunity. It looks like honey, sweetie, because I assume normal people have pet names. I don't know. I'm not a pet name person. But it looks like honey, sweetie, I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to have, or pub for any of our late night UK folks. I'm going to go to the pub. I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to have 3 drinks. And I will be home by 9. And do you know what they do? It is wild, you guys. They go and they have 3 drinks and they're home by 9 and their pants are dry and they got both their shoes and they're with the person they were supposed to be with and it's the right house and everything, And what's even crazier is they do that every single time. See, to drink with impunity means that it does nothing to them and it does nothing for them. That's what it means. And I can't relate to any of that. Little Miss Wet Pants Club over here. Behind the dumpster, like a lady with my pinky up. That's where I'd end up. So drinks which they see others taking with impunity, it does nothing to them. It does nothing for them. And it says, after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, that succumbing to the desire, they take that first drink. And the phenomenon of craving develops. That phenomenon of craving is the allergy of the body. So I take that first drink. I get that moment of ease and comfort. And wouldn't you know it, the longer I'm drinking, the shorter that moment gets. But that allergy kicks off and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the more that I need to drink. And so that phenomenon of craving develops. That's the physical allergy. And they pass through the well-known stages of a spree. And I will say a spree, way more fun to say than it is to be on. Definitely. So that's spree. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree. And the spree is any length of time that I am drinking. A spree can be days. It can be weeks. It could be months. It could be years. Or it could be a single evening. But at some point, that spree comes to an end. Because, man, if it didn't have to, I wouldn't, But at some point, that spree comes to an end. And it says, emerging remorseful. And that's that morning after. That guilt, that shame, that self-hatred. I can't believe I feel the way that I feel. I can't believe that I did it again. I'm grateful that I didn't have a cell phone when I was drinking because I didn't have any messages to delete. I burnt my life down in other ways. But that guilt and shame and remorse, and I can't believe I did it again, and I'm such a loser, and I'm such a failure. I hate myself. That is that emerging remorseful, and that emerging remorseful leads to our firm resolution. I'm never going to drink again. And this is the hallmark of what is wrong with us. Because I say I'm never going to drink again, and it has no effect. It does not have the power to keep me sober. I say I'm never going to drink again, and I drink again. Now, if you've ever had a bad egg salad sandwich or like a bad tuna fish sandwich, and you say, that's it, I'm done with tuna fish, that never going to do it again has an effect. And I feel like it should, but it doesn't. And it goes on to say this is repeated over and 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 over. It doesn't say all those overs, but hey, if you're getting sick of me saying that, we were getting sick of living it. And over and over and over and over. And unless we can experience. And so when we talk about it being over and over and over, what's my experience? My experience is that I say I'm never going to drink again. I say that I'm done. And what happens is I'm thrust into that spiritual malady. It is me on me, like bone on bone, and I don't have a way out. And I don't, and normal people just maybe feel like this on a Tuesday. But my brain gives me a thought, and that thought tells me this time will be different. And I take that first drink, and off I go. And I burn it to the ground, and I emerge remorseful, and I say, you know what, that's it. I'm never going to do it again. And I'm in so much pain, and eventually that thought comes, this time will be different. And I go again, and I go again, and I go again. And you see, when I can find myself in the cycle, when I can see the cycle in my life, that is my first step experience. To put together the allergy. And the result of the allergy is I have to stay sober, and I need to stay sober with the obsession of the mind, which is I cannot stay sober. That puts us in the cycle. And we can come up with examples of our own life of this cycle. Have I been here? Have I gone through this? Have I said I'm never going to do it again, only to find myself doing it again? Is this me? Because if this is me, I begin to awaken to the reality of my alcoholism, which is its hopelessness. I have to stay sober, but I can't stay sober. I want to stay sober, but I can't stay sober. I need to stay sober, but I can't stay sober. And I see the reality, that step one experience. And it says this is repeated over and over. And unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. So the solution that we have is a spiritual awakening. Dr. Silkworth, it's referred to as a psychic change. Psychic is of mind, the etymological origins is of mind and soul. A change of my mind and of my soul. What I need to get off the cycle is to have a spiritual awakening. That's what I need. And the belief that a spiritual awakening is possible, that's step two. When I can see myself on this cycle, like right in here, that is my step one. I can see that I have to stay sober and I'm going to drink again. The belief that a spiritual awakening could be possible, and y'all seem too happy to not have had one. That is my step two. It goes on to say, on the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change, a spiritual awakening has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed is a fancy way to say hopeless, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly, I want to emphasize very quickly, suddenly, it does not take long to get well in Alcoholics Anonymous. It does not take long to have a spiritual awakening. Suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. What that means is the obsession of the mind is removed. And the obsession of the mind is removed because we treat the spiritual malady with the spiritual awakening. The very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving, and suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary, rude to ask me to do effort, but the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. How I get off that cycle to that place of spiritual awakening. That is the 12 steps. We don't like rules. Don't you tell me what to do. But the few simple rules are very simply the 12 steps. And when I make the decision that I am going to take these 12 steps, that is my third step decision. Spoilers for next week. And I know I'm pushing it for time. I'm just going to take us to page 30 real quick. And page 30, and then I am wrapping up. Don't you worry. I do have plans to land the plane. We're not just circling the airport, going Mayday. But it says more about alcoholism, page 30, second paragraph. This is step 1 in the book. It says, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves. So I need to surrender to my innermost selves that we were alcoholics, that I am an alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. So I'm conceding that I have the allergy of the body, which is to say there will never be a time when I can ever safely drink again. And I am conceding that I have the obsession of the mind, which is to say that I'm conceding there will never be a time when I can safely not be involved in these 12 steps as a way of life. I'm conceding that without a spiritual awakening that I grow and that I deepen, I will drink again. And when I can concede those things, that is a step 1 experience. And that was me pushing the limits on time. So over to you, Vivian.